think my top pick for Raum talents has to be the Enforcer talent, which is 75% damage reduction while dashing.
The dash damage reduction legendary, for sure.
It is a lot of DR for the max distance and the time of it, so I think it's probably the play.
If they don't have much CC, I think that's going to be a big one.
I think that's gonna be every time. Maybe if I play casuals and I wanna have fun with the ult and I wanna learn how to use his ult better and stuff, I can use the ultimate legendary, but other than that, I don't think so.
So Enforcer, we had a very specific mindset of what we were trying to deliver feeling-wise with this talent. That entire ability was actually inspired off the X-Men 3 Juggernaut scene of him busting through the buildings. But you feel the impact and the weight that you bring when you're charging forward with Enforcer.
But also the other one would be the ultimate charge up.
Finally, we have Earth Splitter, which is the talent that increases your ultimate charge rate by 60%.
I think the 60% ult charge boost could be useful. I think his ult's pretty powerful. It breaks shields and walls and deployables, so I think it has some merit to it, and I think you could get by running it.
I think the ultimate charge one is going to be the best one, because I think a lot of people who play the damage reduction of the charge, they will play in a really greedy manner where they will put themselves into bad positions quite often just to try go aggro on an enemy team. So I think the ultimate charge up is a good mix between the two, where you can build up to going aggro, but you can also just play safe in the back.
Which is crazy as well. The ult is really good, and if you have it all the time, then many ultis gets very bad compared to it.
I think the loadout you'd want to run health points, which is pretty standard. I think
obviously the health one is better, I think, in most scenarios, because the skull ones, you're just going to end up getting cauterized or something, and then it's not going to help out much. The first one would be the 25% damage reduction on the siphon. So whenever you siphon, you get for 3 seconds, that damage reduction.
I think you should definitely be using the cooldown on Ignition, max cooldown, so 3 seconds, and then using max DR on Ignition as well. Because you're going to be constantly using that ability, right? So every 4 seconds you can have DR back up.
And then ammo on your right click. 250 HP shield when you got below 30% HP with Raum. That seems like a good card, I think.
Generally speaking, you would need cauterize on him. He's a very good spreader of cauterize.
And I think Wrecker's actually pretty good on him, just because I think shields actually kind of stop him from building his souls. So I think being able to break shields and get back to building up your HP bar is what you want to look to do.
Maybe if you play against the barrack on point, then you can actually get away with running Wrecker, but I feel like if you're running Wrecker on him, the first moment that it's actually going to be good is Wrecker 2. So you probably want to get Cauterize 2 and then Wrecker 2, if anything, if you're up against that matchup.
I think getting Nimble on him is quite good though, just because of how slow he is, and having that extra speed is actually feels really good on him.
Especially when you hold your minigun down for some reason, so it does feel like he doesn't have any movement speed reduction at all, so you can just chase up to people who's trying to shoulder pick you or just trying to kite you around walls.
His gameplay loop is he is just shooting constantly, and you can enhance that even more to go from shooting constantly to basically shooting forever if you actually create the right loadout. And that dynamic we didn't really want to break with his other abilities, so he definitely has a built-in combo that's intentional, which is the Juggernaut into Cataclysm. It's a really strong combination where you can Juggernaut onto a player, knock them up, immediately cancel your Juggernaut, turn around Cataclysm. While they're stunned, you pull your Ignition, and then you're fast firing, or you're firing, at full fire rate, your Hellfire Gatling right after. It's a really powerful combination.
I think you want to start with your Ignition just so you get the wind up. You don't have to wait for your gun to wind up, and you also you get the DR proc off. So I think you want to engage with Ignition and then save your dash for when you're low, or you want to engage and cycle that with your Soul Collect, so you always have your damage reduction up.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna be mostly dash out of combat and not into combat. And then after you use your dash, you use your Soul Harvest, because usually you dash when you're low HP, you pop your damage reduction, you dash out, you pop your Q, so you get extra HP, and you get damage reduction on that as well. And it lowers your cooldown on the dash. I forgot about that card, by the way, but yeah, that one. So that's basically the rotation you have. And then you just pop right click, and then you just start shooting, I guess.
You would always have to fill it out a bit, but it depends on their comp. Like if they have a comp where you can actually just dash into them without getting CC'd, that's a good alternative. But if they have a Genos and you get lifted, then you can dash. Because if you dash and get lifted, then you just waste your cooldown, kinda.
Most importantly is that his Soul Harvest doesn't interrupt his fire. So timing when to do Soul Harvest, whether it's to get the flat benefit of the 2000 Soul Armor, or if you want to wait a little bit to generate Soul Orbs, or Soul Fragments, excuse me, from players that are at a further distance before pulling in a bigger pool of armor. Those are some of the decisions that I really want players to have to think about when playing Raum. I think that Raum has the capability to both be an off tank and a point tank, but it will take some time to really see how the meta develops around him.
I just think he's a really beefy frontliner that makes a ton of disruption with his dash. So I think he's pretty good into most things.
He hard counters a lot of the other point tanks in that his ultimate Cataclysm will destroy their deployable shields, especially considering that ability charges faster than any other ultimate in the game.
The ultimate is so useful. Like, you can break all shields and all deployables in the game. So like Barracult will get destroyed, an Aura wall will get destroyed, and he'll get stunned and things like that.
It's a pretty hard counter to Barrack's ult. Poor buddy.
I think you look for a fat stun, but if there's a dome shield on the way, you could definitely look to use it for that. But I think for the most part, I'm looking to engage on like squishies and use it to stun them and blow them up.
I would assume that Damba is good for the movement speed, and Genos is really good for the damage buff, so you can pump out damage.
Maldamba would be a good choice, also Furia because of the ultimate. Both of them gives you like the movement speeds. I also think Ira can work just because of the heal and the damage reduction, and she also gives the movement speed, but
I like to pick Raum when they have little to no CC, like Grover and Genos and different kinds of cripples, like when you play Ashe, you don't want to play into a Grover cripple, and Genos grip and stuff like that. It's very annoying when you pop your dash and your escape is basically useless.
I think Raum is good if you have a kind of pressure composition. So let's say if you ban out Cassie, then you can just pick out Maeve. If they don't have resills or anything like that, right? Maeve can just ult and you can just charge in for free on someone without them realizing it at all. You also do want to have other tanks, but in this scenario you can actually end up getting triple tank now because he's a new tank in the game, so there's going to be extra tanks open, and you can have like an Ashe that can just create all this space, and if he gets space, he can stay alive forever.
I think it's going to be better on small maps for sure. Jaguar falls with a lot of walls. You saw the dash thing when you dash enemies into the wall, you can dash them several times. I think he's going to be weaker on Timberman and stuff like that, but again, I could be wrong because it's super hard to target him to actually commit on the kill on him because he has the damage reduction, so much HP, and if you run the shield in your loadout as well, like you have so many survivability things that just procs over and over and over and over all the time.
As a big part of his design specifically was there's a lot of built-in weakness to Juggernaut, even though the ability itself is so powerful. Is one of, if not the longest wind-up time of a non-ultimate ability, I think. And that was definitely intentional, and there's a lot of ways to counter Raum's Juggernaut specifically, so.
Depending on what they pick, like if they have like Genos, they have a really good counter to his charge, so when you do charge in, the Genos can just like grip you, and then that's game over right there.
He's such a big character, and it's very easy to be CC'd. And even when you're dashing in with 75% DR, all that it takes is a snake or a Genos grab, and you're like, oh, okay,
Probably things like Strix and snipers, things that can poke from a distance. I think those would do really good against him.
Like super weak on long range because the bloom is so heavy on him.
Big game Cassie, Sky, Burn Monster, all the HP cards that 50% health are all pretty good against him.
The main thing is that if you do get big games by Cassie, he's just gonna die. Like, he can't do anything. You just have to try to jump towards cover or something, but Cassie's like the main one because of the bursts, especially with the health. I think the other one would be Eevee. That would be very difficult for him because he cannot trade with the Eevee because of his minigun. Like, you constantly want to charge up, but you're not gonna charge up in time because he's already shot you twice. So I think Eevee is gonna be a huge problem for him. Any blaster sort of, like, when you think about it, Jogos, because if you charge a minigun, you can't really move away from the shots. Bomb King, so those can be really difficult for him.